Story 1. I was raised by a single mother who passed away when I was 14. I am 30 now. I would like another hug from her. It's been hard on my own, and sometimes I just want to be a little kid and cry into someone's chest. I am 59 days sober and feel so alone, angry, and bitter. Story 2. Christmas mornings as a child were special. I would wake up early, run to the tree with my siblings, and spend the entire day playing with new toys while enjoying an abundance of candy. That magical feeling is something I would love to experience again. Story 3. Playing with my friends outdoors. Even though I'm 28, I would still love to play outside a fun game like catch. Story 4. Picking mushrooms with my dad. Since he passed away, I have become passionate about mushrooms, and my dad was exceptional at it. He knew every mushroom and had an incredible ability to find them. Back then, I didn't think much of it. But now that I am starting to learn, I would give anything to spend a day in the woods with my dad again. Story 5. Optimism for the future. Watching the wall fall and the Soviet Union collapse felt like the first steps toward a truly global society where everyone would eventually work toward basic human rights everywhere. Story 6. Talking to Mrs. Seville, the deputy head, she noticed I was being bullied and had no one to talk to. For 2 years, she dedicated a double period each week just to sit with me and talk. She saved my life. Story 7. I miss having faith in adults and not noticing their mistakes. Although it may be for the best, the overall disappointment and cynicism I often feel after realizing how flawed my loved ones are is upsetting. Story 8. Probably a snow day. I've never been a morning person. I had to get up early for school and I disliked it. My mother, on the other hand, was always a morning person. She would wake me up on school mornings. However, if the weather was bad, she would check for school cancellations, and if school was canceled, she wouldn't wake me up. So on snow days, I would wake up, roll over, look at the clock, and see it was well after the time school started. I would know immediately that school had been canceled. I would smile, roll right back over, and go back to sleep. It was the best feeling in the world. Story 9. Sitting beside my grandma on her front porch swing during summer, she would tell me stories and sing to me while we rocked back and forth. The background noise was just crickets and the wind chime. I remember that no matter how hot it got, her skin always stayed cool to the touch, and I would bury my face in her arms. I felt completely happy, unburdened, and safe. I missed that. Story 10. Playing on a playground again. When I lived in Florida, there was a large wooden playground area that I called the Rainbow Park. I don't want to make anyone's parents uncomfortable by being the only childless person at a playground. Story 11. I have a vivid memory of playing in a stream with my older sister and having a picnic, which we shared with a horse, with the owner's permission. My sister is now in the intensive care unit, and the prognosis isn't good, but I'm trying to hold on to hope. Story 12. The only thing I miss that I never found again is all of the people and friends that I made. I never knew where I belonged or fit into one group, so I was someone who talked to everyone from every circle. It sounds trivial as an adult, but there were the popular kids, the academics, the ones who liked rock music, and the list goes on. I literally talked to everyone, and that's the only thing I miss because I never found those connections again. I love being surrounded by people just talking. Despite all the pain and trauma I went through, I feel like if I hadn't lived in the house where I did, my mother and sister would have abused my other sister. I want to believe that I shielded her. I don't know if I actually did or what it would have looked like. Maybe they would have been one big, happy, calm, stable, safe family if I hadn't been part of the picture. That's the story I tell myself, and it gives me peace and comfort because they would have hurt her worse than me, whereas I quickly saw what I needed to see. Story 13. Visiting the Shedd Aquarium in Chicago, Illinois, was the most magical place on earth for me. I think I miss being allowed to take my time looking at the animals for the whole day. Story 14. Love. Just love. Without the subtle nuance of having to psychoanalyze the person who tells me that they do. Story 15. As others have said, summer seems so long. Playing football until the sun went down, having water fights with neighbors, no school, and enjoying kids' TV. It was epic. Christmas was also special, waking up to the stockings, Then the tree, the presents, the food, and the excitement. Now that I have young kids, I love experiencing it all again through them, but it's not the same knowing the tricks. When I opened my Millennium Falcon and Atari on Christmas morning, in different years, I was filled with excitement. Story 16. I miss many things from my childhood. I know I had a magical childhood, and I am always thankful for that. I wish I could have given my children the same. I tried. Story 17. My great-aunts, uncles, and grandparents would come for visits. Everyone would stay at mom and dad's. We kids would sleep on the living room floor because we gave up our bedrooms for them. The laughter, the jokes, the teasing, the love, and the fun we had that week are all memories I cherish. They are all gone now. I would give just about anything to go back for one more time to relive those moments. Story 18. Being a child at home with all my siblings and parents was my normal. I wish I could experience that every day again. I took it for granted at the time. Story 19. Learning how to drive a manual transmission was an exciting experience. When I learned the friction point, it just clicked. I was smiling from ear to ear. Story 20. The adults in my life are being healthy. In the last few years, my extended circle has experienced several passings, some of which were unexpected, along with terminal illnesses and a serious accident. This includes parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and friends of my parents. Story 21. The feeling of completion is fulfilling. After finishing my homework and chores, I have no responsibilities until tomorrow. As an adult with a job, a home, and a family, there is no sense of accomplishment quite like this. The only downtime I experience is when I procrastinate. Story 22. Just getting outside, spending hours unsupervised, making up games, and exploring the world. Story 23. This might seem very mundane, but my parents and I used to eat breakfast together every day without fail. No matter what, we would sit at the table, eat, laugh, and talk for 30 minutes each morning. I lost both my parents in a car crash 5 years ago. I would give anything to sit at that table again, even if only for 5 minutes. Story 24. Exploring the woods and old buildings in the wild behind our house felt carefree, with no cell phones in sight. It was exhilarating and liberating. Story 25. At school, I attended a special after-school group to learn social skills. We participated in various activities, including lunch and dinner. Dinner was amazing. They had a caterer who provided delicious food. They served the best lasagna I have ever eaten. Nothing I have made comes close to that. Story 26. An extremely colorful sunset after it has been snowing in winter looks much more vibrant. There is so much beauty to it, but I haven't seen it since I was a child. Sunsets now, when it snows, appear yellow-tinged and dull compared to the orange and pink hues I remember from my childhood. Story 27. Making bubbles from hibiscus flowers. Annoying your neighbor to use his bike. Hanging out with cousins on the terrace and playfully arguing about the cars that pass by, claiming they are ours. When a Volkswagen passes, we call it the turtle car because of its shape, and we tap each other on the head. Another activity is when one cousin brings a guitar, and we all just relax together. Or when the electricity is out, we hang out by the driveway telling scary stories. Good times. Story 28. Halloween. I was up north, and the weather was always perfect. I had friends nearby to go trick-or-treating with, and the neighborhood we lived in had many young families and children. Story 29. I don't know why, but I can't smell things as I used to. I only detect strong scents like cigarette smoke, incense, and gasoline, or when something is right in front of me. I no longer sense the aromas of my environment, only particular scents. Perhaps smoking has damaged my sense of smell. Story 30. Receiving my first laptop with Windows Vista at 7 years old, I played Club Penguin and Friv games. I also enjoyed spending time in the computer room at school on rainy days. Story 31. Becoming best friends with someone your age for the next hour or two, then never seeing them again. Story 32. Christmas shopping with my mom was a cherished experience. The moment I realized who Santa was, I became her partner in finding the perfect gifts for others. The joy she felt while shopping was contagious. From Black Friday to the day before Christmas Eve, every moment was wonderful. I miss her dearly. Story 33. Having a father was significant. I was in 5th grade when he died, and it is honestly hard to remember anything about him. Story 34. Water fights, ice slides, dens, BMX jumps, camping in the backyard, excitement about girls, rope swings, mixed sweets, grass fights, school fights, spinning soap in the bath, my mom, tree climbing, jumping in the garden, playing cricket or football, loading computer games, swapping magazines, getting drunk on one can, stealing milk, joyrides, and the beach. Story 35. Using the computer for hours as a 7 to 8-year-old brought me immense joy while watching content that was not appropriate for my age. Story 36. Running barefoot through tall grass as fast as my legs could carry me for long distances without feeling any pain afterwards. Story 37. I am going to watch my brother race motocross on weekends. He started racing professionally in elementary school, and we traveled everywhere for his races. I used to stand in the middle of the track with my dad to cheer him on. Both my dad and my brother passed recently. I miss them. Story 38. I remember having an overwhelming, comfortable feeling when I was very young, maybe 4 to 7 years old, of waking up in the morning and going into my parents' bed, being cuddled and just relaxing. I felt so relaxed and cozy. I had that feeling a couple of times as a young adult, but I haven't experienced it since having children. Story 39. Hope for the future is limitless, stemming from a naive belief in both the good and the bad. The world is like a beautiful mural painted with deception. Between different groups, not a single one has told the truth. Sweet words mask the harsh realities. I long to spend one more day embracing the comfort of these illusions, feeling that measure of naive hope once again. A glimpse of the world without acknowledging its horrors. Story 40. My grandma's cooking. Christmas Eve with Dad's family and Christmas Day with Mom's family. Family birthday celebrations. Story 41. Recess in primary school involved going outside and playing games like tag, which was genuinely enjoyable. I believe it would still be fun now, although it might be considered unusual. Story 42. My dad passed away when I was 7. 6 months before he passed, we moved 8 hours away. He was a corrections officer, so he was trying to get a transfer to the jail in the new city. In the meantime, he still had to work at the old jail and travel to visit us on his days off. I remember one time I got home from school, and he was doing the driveway. I ran up to him, and he picked me up and spun me around while hugging me. I wish I could go back to that moment and experience it again. It was 2 to 3 months before he died. Story 43. My brothers and I, along with a few friends, used to slide down hills in bomber jackets, trying to look back uphill and pretending to be Arnold Schwarzenegger in the snow fight scene at the beginning of True Lies. Story 44. I would love to spend more time with my sister. I enjoyed saddling up my horse, taking my dog, and disappearing for hours without a care in the world. The feelings associated with these moments are hard to explain. Story 45. Making daisy chains in the field in the middle of summer at school. Sometimes I wish I could experience being a child again. Story 46. Spending time with my grandparents was special. I want to bake cookies with my grandmother again, hear my grandfather laugh, help my grandmother tend to her flowers, and hear my grandfather greet me with, "Hey there, bug eyes." They are all gone now, and I miss them. Story 47. I feel safe, content, and happy in the arms of my parents, sitting on the couch between them while we watch a movie. I want to feel small again, safe, and assured that everything will be okay because I have a loving family and a whole life ahead of me. I don't have any significant worries yet. I just want to experience that sense of being a kid again. Story 48. Free History Channel games. What I wouldn't do to play Jurassic Fight Club. Turf Wars just one more time. Story 49. While I disliked high school, there was one exam day when we all sat in the library and played poker and flash games. Enjoyed sitting at poker. Story 50. That first time I really kissed a girl, we were both 12. Her name was Cecilia. She was a redhead and very adventurous. She taught me some things. I hope that's not too much for this group. Story 51. The Magic of Holidays. Eagerly slipping into a costume and exploring the neighborhood on a crisp fall night, I filled my plastic orange bucket with foil-wrapped treasures. The inside of the bucket smelled like chocolate and wrappers, occasionally mixed with the scent of stale cigarette smoke from the older lady who lives on the corner. Staying out even in the dark, dry leaves tumbled across the pavement with an eerie scratching sound that added to the ambience. Other kids laughed as they pantomimed or spoke like the characters they were dressed as. Returning to my cozy, warm home, I spilled all of my spoils onto the worn carpet in front of the television to watch. It's the Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I could feel the static of the TV raising the hairs on my arm as I accidentally brushed against the screen while excitedly flailing my hands at the task before me. I carefully sorted everything and meticulously counted each miniature candy bar, wax paper wrap taffy, and candy cigarette box with the concentration of a pharmacist sorting pills. I gave my least favorite candies to someone else and gorged myself on too much as I watched Halloween Town on the Disney Channel. I went to bed with a bloated belly and jittery limbs, but the joy of the day made it worth it. Story 52. Afternoons with my grandmother. When I was in kindergarten through second grade, every day after school my grandmother would pick me up. She would take me to Wawa and buy me Tootsie Rolls or a pretzel. We would go to a store where she would buy me a stuffed animal, and some days she would take me back to her home where we would eat dinner, draw, or take walks outside. I love and miss her so much. I would give anything for just one more day to talk with her and spend time with her again. Unfortunately, I cannot turn back the clock. I can only hope I am growing into a woman she is proud of enough to call her granddaughter, even from her place in heaven. I look forward to when I get to see her again. Story 53. A Sunday dinner with everyone around the table, followed by a Viennetta for dessert. Hearing us laugh as kids and seeing my mom and dad feeling young again while trying to listen to their conversation was a cherished moment. Story 54. Waking up on Christmas morning, so excited and happy. Day trips to the city and not being able to sleep the night before because of the excitement. That feeling when summer break had just begun and having so much free time. Story 55. Playing Ocarina of Time as a young child on Christmas morning was a moment I will never forget. It was truly magical. Story 56. Listening to the list of schools closed due to snow on the local radio. Then your school is read out, and you get the day off to go sledding and have snowball fights. Story 57. The amazing strength and agility of a child's body is remarkable. The monkey bars and rings showcase this endurance. Additionally, original McDonald's fries made in beef fat are noteworthy. I haven't had McDonald's in many years, and I'm not even tempted. Story 58. I recently thought about how nice it felt to have my mom read to me and just sit and talk at bedtime. I guess it would be quite strange to do that now, so I'm not sure it answers your question. However, I would really like to feel that way again. Story 59. When you were bored, there was always a place where you knew other kids were playing. The park, the arcade, or skating by the library parking lot. Kids do not meet up and play outside like they used to. Story 60. Being with my grandparents was special. They ran errands on Wednesdays, so every week we went to the bank, then to lunch, and finally grocery shopping. It wasn't the most enjoyable activity at the time, but I would give anything to do it again. When the market we used to visit closed a few years ago, I went in for one last walk and saw their favorite cashier. When he briefly transferred to another store, they followed him there until he returned to the original location. I hadn't seen him in nearly 20 years, but I recognized him immediately and started crying. I wish I had talked to him, but I just couldn't. Story 61. Christmas as a 6-year-old. Wearing my new pajamas, sitting in the car and driving to my grandparents' houses, my sister and I played with our new toys during the 1.5-hour drive before going to my father's parents' house for dinner. We got to open a gift from them before enjoying amazing food made by my grandfather. Imagine warm, comforting, delicious smells. We received long, squeezing hugs while saying goodbye, then hopped back in the car for a short drive to my mother's parents. It was chaotic and smelled like cigarettes. All my aunts and cousins were talking over each other and cracking jokes. It was playful, loud, and a little unsettling in a good way. We ate too many cookies and eventually made the rounds of kisses on the cheek and hugs goodbye. I fell asleep on the drive and was home in an instant. Pure joy. Story 62. My dad had work holidays where everyone brought their families. A total of 20 to 30 people would go on trips to the mountains and spend the weekend together. I made some of the best memories on these trips, and I would give anything to have them back. Story 63. Spending an entire day riding a mini bike or motorcycle through acres of undeveloped land. Story 64. The internet was a great place before Facebook became popular. I would love to go back to the early 2000s, surfing LiveJournal and eBaum's world again. I also miss Borders bookstores. If I could time travel, I would visit the one at my local mall for one last browse through the young adult shelves. Story 65. Not knowing anything and walking into the world bright-eyed and full of energy. Everything was new and incredible. Story 66. Christmas and Easter were times when Santa or the Easter Bunny would visit. My mom made sure those magical moments were truly special while I was able to believe in them. Story 67. No digital leashes. You came and went and left a note for the people who needed to know. You missed calls and maybe didn't even have an answering machine. You'd make calls and have to talk to someone else to reach the person you were calling or to find out your friend wasn't there and possibly get a vague idea of where they might be. Email didn't exist yet. Some important people had pagers, but you could still ignore a page until it was convenient and no one cared. People took their phones off the hook sometimes too, just because they could, and short of showing up at their door, there was nothing you could do. And we were all fine with this. Story 68. 1. Watching Avatar: The Last Airbender for the first time again. Seeing my mischievous childhood cat again. Experiencing Thanksgiving with my mother's side of the family again. Story 69. I grew up in the late 1990s and honestly, my childhood was amazing. I think I miss Christmas the most, especially getting together with my whole family. My extended family that hosted it has mostly passed, so I don't meet up with my family much outside of my parents. I still remember sitting in the car for hours to get to the Christmas party, and my uncle would always give my sister and me the best gifts. I still miss my Shelby, which was one of the coolest gifts I ever received. Story 70. My mother worked night shifts in a care home on weekends for extra money, which meant weekends alone with my father as an only child. We enjoyed trips to the park, just the two of us, with him pushing me on the swings. When we got home, he would carry me to the sofa and put his cardigan over me so I could nap. I loved sitting on his lap while we watched television. These are so many little memories. He is now 81, frail, and half the size he was back then, with a list of health conditions and early signs of dementia. I would do anything to go back and spend just one weekend with him as his little girl, appreciating all those little things I took for granted at the time. Story 71. A game of hide and seek in the yards of our neighborhood goes on until our parents call us inside. Children are screaming and dogs are barking. Story 72. Waking up late on a weekend feeling refreshed is a wonderful experience. That first morning stretch brings a sense of well-being, free from pain, stress, or concerns. Story 73. The feeling of sitting on the floor in my oversized shirt, which my brothers and I used as pajamas, and playing on our Nintendo 64 together. Just the carefree feeling of three boys finally getting along while playing Pokemon Stadium or helping our middle sibling beat The Legend of Zelda. Ocarina of Time. A good times. Story 74. I miss seeing lightning bugs during summer evenings. I used to live in a more humid area, but now I live where it is drier, and we do not get to see them. Story 75. Sunday meals at home after church include roasted chicken and conversations with my family and sisters during the meal. Story 76. The feeling I experienced when buying a new video game is something I have been trying to replicate. Recently, the closest I came to that feeling was with Avowed. The sense of wonder and excitement while exploring a magical land reminded me of my first time playing Skyrim. I genuinely hope Grand Theft Auto 6 can bring that feeling back, but I am also afraid it may be a huge letdown. With the video game industry having changed significantly over the last decade, I think this sense of caution we have to approach games with nowadays is killing that excitement. Story 77. Playing Nintendo 64 and GameCube with my siblings was a great experience. There are four of us, and I am the oldest, with the youngest being only 4 years younger. We had so much fun playing Mario Party and James Bond games. Now that we are all in our 30s, we still gather at our parents' house during Christmas time to play a couple of games, but it's just not the same. Story 78. I miss the ice cream my dad used to make. The ice cream churner would sit in the sink, and he would occasionally stir it. We used peaches from the garden. The chocolate chip flavor was amazing too. I wish I knew his recipe. It was delicious. I would love to have one last bowl. Story 79. I had a lot of fear and anxiety during my uncomfortable childhood. It's sad to say that I don't remember much. Perhaps it was the snow days or a particular night in middle school when some friends and I went out for fast food and a movie. Story 80. There was a day when I sat on the beach with a friend. We mostly sat in silence, but I watched the water and thought about the future. I thought about falling in love someday, chasing dreams, and adventuring to experience wonder. I would give anything to experience one more day of that pure and innocent optimism I once had before I became a jaded curmudgeon. Story 81. Toys R Us, while the store in my town was a maze and cramped even for a child, made me miss wandering the aisles and being in awe of all the various toys. Story 82. When I missed the clue from my attractive friend that she was interested in me and I ignored her, I would like to have another opportunity to capitalize on it. Story 83. We were part of a travel trailer club when I was young. I loved those weekends. I got to spend time with my grandparents and people who became family members. Those carefree weekends spent playing and getting away from home were essential. I would love a chance to enjoy all those characters from my childhood. Thank you for bringing back this memory. Story 84. When I first saw my wife in grade school, her smile was everything, and it has stayed with me forever. I wish I could go back one more time and tell her how I felt without being so nervous. Story 85. In 1995, I woke up at 6 a.m. to watch Pokemon on television and wrote down the new Pokemon names I learned. Story 86. Being wrapped in my dad's warm leather jacket as he carries me when I am half asleep from the neighbor's house to my bed. My brother would babysit me at the neighbor's so our parents and neighbors could go to the pub together. Story 87. Summers at my grandparents' were filled with sunshine, fresh air, plenty of hugs, and swimming in the lake down the road, even enjoying Lawrence Welk. Story 88. Being with my grandmother was a cherished experience. She lived with us until she passed away when I was 17. Now, at 53, I still miss her every day. I am who I am because of her love. Story 89. Waking up on a summer day and discovering that my dad had gone to the store early to get donuts. Vanilla glazed with candies on top. It was always a nice treat before running outside to the swing set. Story 90. The dream I had about a zero-gravity soft play area was and still is the most fun I have ever had in my life. Story 91. The aroma of my mom preparing an Italian feast and her gently swatting my hands away while trying to get a spoonful of gravy on Saturday night, as it still has 20 hours to cook. Story 92. So it wouldn't just be waking up for Saturday morning cartoons or eating Lucky Charms or Pop-Tarts. I can do that now as an adult. It would literally be being an actual kid again and having the mindset of a child at that time. The fact that I wouldn't know or remember everything I do now, waking up for a new episode of Dragon Ball Z on Toonami that I'd never seen before, or a new episode of Outlaw Star, Cowboy Bebop, or Tenchi Muyo, coupled with experiencing life in general back then. Playing Medal of Honor Frontline for the first time on PlayStation 2, or The Lord of the Rings, Two Towers game and getting to the Helm's Deep part with your friend, or playing Time Splitters 2 and Lord of the Rings, the third age together and overcoming all the difficult parts. Hearing the original Halo menu music for the first time, not knowing what I was about to experience, both for the campaign and multiplayer, or loading up Half-Life 2 for the first time on Steam and waiting 3 hours for it to unlock, or getting my early teenage self scared silly with Doom 3 and FER. In the dark. Playing vanilla World of Warcraft back in 2004 for the first time or experiencing Mass Effect when it first released. Video games were a big part of my life. Just being able to relive all of that for the first time as a kid again. Story 93. I grew up in a relatively small Texas town. My dad and I would get up on Saturday mornings and ride our horses to a little burger joint about 3 miles away, where we would get ice cream. Story 94. running around and laughing in a playground without feeling tired or heavy, playing tag, bulldog, or hide and seek for hours. Story 95. Going to Mexico in the summer and seeing everyone ride their horses through town in the evening. Story 96. Sleepovers with my group of 10 were unforgettable. I miss those girls. I grew up by a lake, so sleepovers were amazing. We would dance, go swimming, eat ice cream, sip cold drinks, and stay up late. Organizing that kind of gathering as an adult is a logistical nightmare. Shuttle launches require less planning and coordination. Story 97. Around 7 or 8 years old, I lay in the back seat of our Matador while Dad drove Mom and me home from somewhere I don't remember. I looked at the star-filled sky while Mom and Dad quietly held hands, discussing whatever was on their minds. I remember thinking, I will always remember this. Story 98. Being a child is a special occasion that is meant to be wonderful for all children. Unfortunately, many children lose their innocence due to the negligence of others and are left feeling empty. To have the opportunity to be a child again would be amazing. Story 99. Lying on the grass on a sunny day with my friends and little brother, watching the clouds go by after a long session of playing. No worries, feeling the breeze, healthy, young, and pain-free. Story 100. Summer vacations involve watching cartoons, reading comics and books, and playing with friends. Fun days with no cares in life. Story 101. Sitting in a rocking chair with my grandmother. Nothing felt as soft as her skin. She is the absolute definition of love for me. Story 102. The feeling of walking into my foster carer's home at age 8 for the first time was unforgettable. You might think I would have been scared, but I genuinely wasn't. It was decorated, warm, inviting, and so homely. She was an amazing woman who showed me so much love from the moment I met her and made me feel at ease. I stayed with her for a few years on 2 occasions, and I loved my time with her. I often wished she would adopt me. That feeling of pure warmth and love I received from her has never been matched. Story 103. My friends and family, especially my younger sister, were healthy and full of life. We laughed a lot and friends played outside every day. I miss those days immensely. Story 104. An overnight stay with my cousins at my grandma's house seems impossible now. First, my grandma is gone, and second, my cousins are now on the other side of the world. Story 105. Raised by a single mother, I would walk to my grandparents' house after school and spend the afternoons with them until my mother arrived. We would all have dinner together, and then my mother and I would leave to go to our apartment. The best times were when my mother had a date and my grandfather worked the night shift. My grandmother and I would decide what to have for dinner. She would make up the sofa bed in the den for me. We played cards together, watched television, and popped popcorn. She was the only person who never made me feel like a burden when I was young. Her love laid the foundation for me to be a loving parent. I missed that special time with my grandmother. I wish that as I got older, I had gotten to know her more as a person and not just as my grandmother. What was her first love? What were her dreams? What was it like growing up? Story 106. A Sunday afternoon, relaxing at home with my parents. The smell of my mom doing the household laundry and my dad grilling. I watched cooking shows and This Old House on public television with both of them, feeling the anxiety of another school week while trying to enjoy the last of my freedom. It was carefree and innocent. Story 107. My first experience in organized baseball was when I was about 9 or 10 years old. I had my glove already broken in, but I had brand new batting gloves and cleats that were waiting to be broken in. I admired the professional players, and I believed that this was the beginning of what would be my lifelong passion. I had a great time taking batting practice and fielding ground balls for the first time. It was truly magical, and I will never forget that day. Story 108. Fireflies. I live on the west coast of the United States and grew up mostly on the East Coast. I think they are beautiful and I miss them. I would love to be able to catch some, or at least attempt to, again at least once more in my lifetime. If I ever pass, please, in lieu of flowers, I would like local butterflies and fireflies to be released, and my cacti and plants to be planted in the ground somewhere nearby. I would prefer for my body to nourish them somehow if possible. I love plants, bugs, and animals, and I would love to return to nature and make a small positive impact on the world when doing so. Story 109. Going for a walk with my father was a cherished memory. Whenever we went on vacation, we were the first to wake up, so we would take a walk to avoid disturbing others. I miss him. Story 110. The family vacation to a nearby lake lasted for a week and included the extended family. It was 7 days of fun filled with swimming and pizza. The only structured meal was breakfast. The rest of the day consisted of snacking. Despite being busy running around, no one really felt hungry. Grandma and Grandpa were active, and Grandma always had candies or ice cream to share. We enjoyed reading in the sun, and there were always 1 or 2 occasions when someone watched a documentary. By the halfway point, half of us would gather in the room, seated on the floor or back of the couch, invested in whatever was happening. However, at 3/4 through, someone would announce a trip to the pool, and the room would clear out in an instant. I especially appreciated that time spent with my grandparents. Story 111. My mom would call my grandmother every night at bedtime. My siblings and I would listen to the call. The sound of my mom coming up the stairs to bed was very comforting. Story 112. Weekends involve walking to the deli to get a bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, along with an orange, strawberry, and banana juice. Story 113. Christmas. How the tree lit up, twinkling and casting shadows and light everywhere. I used to lie underneath it and look up through it. It felt magical. The anticipation the night before, when you still believe you have to be asleep or Santa won't come, was exhilarating. The excitement as you jumped out of bed and exclaimed, "Oh my goodness! Look at all those presents." I even left milk and cookies out for Santa. Everything was magical and mysterious when you were a child. Around every corner was an adventure. As an adult, most of that has been lost. Technology isn't a mystery anymore, and few things impress us. As for adventure, it often feels like more of the same, and if you try to seek out excitement, you might end up with the police called instead of just being reprimanded. But hey, at least I get to stay up and eat whatever I want whenever I want. Hooray for adulthood. Story 114. Sleeping like a normal person, I developed narcolepsy when I was 10, and my sleep quality has been terrible since then. Story 115. Believing that my mom loved me was not really true, as it stemmed from the idea that the reason she didn't was due to my behavior, which was normal. She was incredibly verbally abusive and manipulative. We are no longer in contact after she tried to sue me because I wouldn't give her items from my grandfather's estate, specifically a doll and a hornet's nest. What I truly miss is my grandfather. He was the only light in my life for a long time. I was raised by my grandparents, and at 20, I lost him to cancer. It was very tough to watch. We would throw rocks in the river and just hang out. He was my entire childhood. I only got to see him on weekends or on other days during the summer once he retired because my mom divorced him. She was the problem. He meant everything to me. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.